Well, we are lucky to have with us Mr. Malay Mishra, His Excellency Ambassador to Hungary from India, a very senior diplomat from the Indian Foreign Services, and particularly he specializes in diaspora because he handled the diaspora aspects in the Ministry of External Affairs. And then when the new ministry was formed of Indian Overseas Affairs, that diaspora policies and planning, Mr. Mishra held for a long time. And you will realize that when we talk of tourism, when we talk of tourism markets, and we talk of tourism to India, and the pull factors related to that, we have a large NRI and PIOs Indian market also. People second generation, third generation, I don't have to explain the NRIs and all to you. But within the NRIs also there are differentiations, like we have people in Canada, we have the recent migrations or what we call the mobility studies, and then we have the earlier migrations which go back to almost early 19th century, and a large Indian diaspora we find there in Suriname, we find in Mauritius, we find in the Caribbean countries, Trinidad, Barbados, many other, Jamaica, many other places over there. And Mr. Mishra has a vast experience of that. And in fact, first time I met Mr. Mishra was the Indian High Commissioner in Trinidad, where he did a lot of efforts. So welcome, Mr. Mishra. And I think we'd like to share your experiences in terms of not only promoting India in these areas to the diaspora, but also the understanding of Indian diaspora, which we Indians should have to have more interaction between the two and all.
On the first aspect is, of course, promoting India to the diaspora, which is easy because for the diaspora, India is the motherland, or maybe the grand motherland, as they say, because from India went their forefathers 150 years ago. Most of their, as you mentioned, those countries like the Caribbean countries or Fiji, South Africa, Mauritius, those forefathers, they went from India as cane workers. And today that diaspora has come very vibrant, very affluent, doing a lot in the society, contributing very handsomely to the society's developments wherever they are. So for them, India comes very naturally. But what happens when you promote diaspora to India? That is where the problem is, because not many Indians are particularly aware of what the diaspora is. If you ask a student, a normal student in your college, what do you mean by the Indian diaspora? He or she may not be able to answer it satisfactorily, because I do not think we have introduced diaspora studies properly into our curriculums, neither in college nor in university. Forget about schools. So people don't know about the diaspora. I think that's a very valid point, that they need to, otherwise there is no interaction.
I know, because now recently some trends have started, some researches have started, some centers have opened for
Very
diaspora
sporadic
studies.
in some
But very
universities here
few.
and there.
But I think it needs to be brought into the main curriculum structure of the country.
Yes.
When we are talking of colonialism, when we are talking of these aspects,
Yes.
then we have to brought in that how the Indians moved out during that period, what made them move out, what conditions they were in, and how they struggled there, you know.
Yeah, and what has happened now? The diaspora then and the diaspora now. I mean, it's very different complexion.
It's a complexion, and it's a very interesting area both for research and for studies moving into those aspects over there. Because my experience in Trinidad was that people were crazy in that sense for India, you know. Well, my own experience in Trinidad was that they are quite crazy for India. And so now, can you, you have been doing a lot of cultural exchange there. You know, I found that from ICCR, I think the maximum number of groups which went in form of dance, music, films were during your period over there. So I would like you to share with us your experience, that how the Trinidad people have been taking it, whatever efforts you made, and what from a futuristic point of view is necessary for us, not only just in Caribbean, but in different Indian missions where the diaspora is, that how we can go about this, that we are able to attract more diaspora back home to experience today's India, and not just the old memories which has given to them by the ancestors, but to have a contemporary Indian look also.
Yeah.
So,
I basically have endeavored to promote two features of Indian society when you bring in these cultural exchanges. One is to promote India's diversity, because India's diversity is unique. In no country in the world, at least no country which I have seen in my career, I have seen so much of diversities of the land. So much of mixing up of peoples and so much of interaction of cultures you find nowhere else in the
That's
world.
right. That's
That way
right,
our country
Govind.
is unique. We should be extremely proud of that. So that is one feature. That's why I made it a point that we must showcase cultures of nearly all parts of India as much as possible.
Well, I could see that you had brought in the Bhangra dance group
Yeah,
also,
yeah.
and you're beyond that Odisha Mayur, if I'm pronouncing it correctly,
From
that
nearly
dance
every
form
part
also.
of India. I mean, you had to show some part of India, and so that you give a proper, glimpse of India. That was one. Second was to show what today's India is,
Right.
because some of these diasporas are fixated on the time when their forefathers left India, as if for them India hasn't changed since
That's
that
right.
time.
That's right. Even the
So
mental
you have
setup
to
in relation
break
to
that,
many aspects.
break that notion that no, India is today evolving society, a vibrant, growing society, and it has now developed so many aspects of its society which relates with the rest of the world in equal space, in equal way, at the equal level. So that is India. So if you can project these two images to the modern day diaspora, I think they'll be very happy.
In fact, I remember two aspects. That though Bollywood is very popular there, but you had a film festival there in
Exactly.
which different forms of Indian, different regional cinema went
Exactly.
over there. And then
Exactly.
you had the film of the Tagore films show also there
Shown
in
at the
different
Tagore
places.
Festival,
Festival
yes,
also.
yes.
So giving
So
that.
I have used images of Indian personalities, Tagore, Gandhi, Nehru, to tell some aspects of India's history and to bring the importance to today's India and to the rest of the world. Tagore is no longer an Indian. Tagore is a universal man. Gandhi is hardly an Indian. Gandhi is a universal feature. Nehru, his contribution towards entire non-aligned world, I mean, his entire foreign policy of the world, you can say, at some time was shaped by his vision. So these are people who you can depict them not as an Indians per se, but their contribution to the rest of the world. So I always tell them, how many countries in the world can boast of this galaxy of people who we can produce in just a span of barely 1 century. You had, I mean, one after another, all these great people who came to us, and why not? These are our iconic, custodians of our heritage. So we
See,
have to
that's
show them.
another very important aspect has been the religious pilgrimage aspect, which they are very much interested in doing to India.
And that is
From
where
there.
we score very low points, unfortunately.
That's right.
I do not understand why our religious places should be so filthy, so dirty, where God, how can God live in dirty place? I mean, it beats my
In
imagination.
fact, you see, I was myself worried with one of the journalists, senior journalists from Trinidad who came here
Yeah.
and went to a religious place. And the way she was, there were two, three of them, and the way they were taken to show a place of worship, and then they were asked to make it that unless you offer so much money here, we won't let you go. This kind of experiences and all. So, what do you think? What do you suggest in this? That one, only the religious places, and secondly, the tour operators, and do they have a role to play in this kind of
Of course,
a
they
thing?
have a role to play. If you see, people know about that India is a fountainhead of civilization, and civilization and spirituality have merged together on the Indian, all the entire scenario here. And people do love India, the eternal part of India, the everlasting part of India. And religion is such a vibrant force within Indian society, and they would go to these religious places.
Do you think the overseas Indian Affairs Ministry can play a role in certain terms of development for wherever these most popular sites are for Indian diaspora to visit in developing some
Well,
infrastructure
not
over there?
directly, because these are the responsibility of the state governments wherever they lie. For example, Banaras, let's take. Banaras is a place most visited in the
Banaras,
world.
Hardwar, both.
Everybody knows about Banaras. And Banaras is the oldest city of the
Oldest
world.
city of
That
the
also
world.
everybody
Yeah.
knows. It is the most sanctified city of the world. But you go to Banaras, see those ghats, see those streets, see those small places, see those shops. What images you get out of them? Who cares for all the gods, deities around? Who will look at all those gods and deities around? Even if you go, as you said, so much of rituals, we burden the tourists with the rituals. We ask them to do this, not ask, we force them to do this, do that. And finally, the man is tired. He will never ever come to Banaras.
The second
Not
aspect
only
is
he will
not
never
as a
ever
repeat.
come to Banaras, he will deter 20 other people never to go to Banaras.
That's the
Look at
kind of
that.
problem which we
How
face over here.
counterproductive we have made ourselves.
ourselves.
So it is the squarely the state government of Uttar Pradesh who should pour money into that, into developing Sarnath. You know the road which links Banaras and Sarnath. Sarnath is a city which is most revered by the Buddhist tourists. Now you are developing Buddhism, Buddhist tourism. You are developing Buddhist trails, and Saranath is a one of the most important features. Look at that road, which joins Banaras with Sarnath.
Sarnath,
I mean, these tourists coming from Japan, from Korea, from Thailand, from all those places, suddenly they find themselves in this place, and they are going to Sarnath.
So,
What
Mr.
impression
Mishra,
do
one of my experiences Sarnath was that when I compared the guiding services in Sarnath with other places in India, I found the guides there as the most updated. They had their laptops with them, very updated, and they could get this lesson. The tourist now who's coming to you at times may be more knowledgeable than you, because every tourist which is coming, I think the students must know this aspect, that today's tourist is also very different from the tourist of 10 years back. Now, if they have to come to a destination, they fully research the destination. There's so much information available on websites and all, and queries within 2 minutes through mails, they can get the information and all that. And that kind of a change which is coming also. Another thing I found in Caribbean was very interesting in their genealogical studies. Gujarat started something like roots tourism few years back and was able to generate a lot of interest of Indian diaspora. And in Trinidad, I think it's Mr. Shamsuddin who has been very active in this,
He's a
pioneer in this regard,
yeah.
and he has
He's
been
done
bringing in
tremendous work in
bringing in a lot of kind of tourists also to there. He's doing research and finding their aspects over there, which again is a very thing. But I think this kind of an effort has to be backed very strongly from our side also. That the ship records which we have today are still in bad shape. You know, we have not been able to put them all in the archives. And although I think this Calcutta thing came up, I think you with your efforts it only came up. That memorial in Calcutta over there for the diaspora and all those aspects over there.
In the beginning, and I
which
went
did
around
that
and
over there. So these are.
You see, that is a very valuable sector. Talking about diaspora, you know, our genealogical tourism, we can do fantastically well, because so many villages are there. I mean, there could be thousands of villages in eastern UP and Bihar, even in the south.
You know, today all of them who come, they film that experience. We saw that films produced by, I think
there's a New York-based film director.
She did it during those conferences.
That's right.
And all.
That's right.
And one more thing I like, because I remember during my period with you there, you encouraged and then you organized at least 3 major conferences within the university over there, and relating to the Indian diaspora.
That's right.
And particularly the last one in August 2012,
I would say
think.
that was the best.
Because which showed the performance and the academic aspects together. Don't you think that it's time that within India, as you said rightly in the beginning, that diaspora studies and all, that we should have more now these kind of seminars, workshops and conferences in Indian universities also, where the diaspora cultures and where diaspora living styles or how they have developed or their history and all can be shared with the Indian academia.
Exactly. I couldn't agree with you more. I think what we need is systematic studies of diaspora. Today I know maybe Hyderabad University has got a diaspora studies. Maybe IGNOU, you have got some small department of diaspora. Maybe in Gujarat, as you said, northern Gujarat.
You find some individual scholars working.
But these are all, scattered. in different places, and their study programs are not very systematic.
There's a lot of some
People
studies
come
in
and go
Banaras
and
done on Virhay, Geet
yeah, yeah.
and all in Bihar,
What
which
I'm saying
developed.
is let UGC prescribe it across the country as a part of your college curriculum, that people should learn
Actually,
diaspora.
UGC did in its guidelines way back in 2002.
Yeah.
Even in the history curriculum and master's levels, I was a part of that expert committee, and we had put up at that time Diaspora Studies
But has it come
as a
into being?
full-fledged paper. Few universities only picked it up. The problem is that UGC can be a guideline only; it cannot impose. So few state universities picked up on that kind of a thing. Now, can you quickly, sir, tell me, suppose when they visit India, like what kind of hurdles and obstacles which are there from that side, in which some bilateral collaboration between the governments and all can remove those obstacles, say like air travel. Now, one has to go, suppose one is coming from Caribbean, so one has to either fly to New York or London or Amsterdam and then fly to India.
Right.
So, these kind of flying arrangements, suppose there is a direct flight or even a flight with a stopover in Africa, in one of the African countries somewhere to the Caribbean, that reduces the journey by half,
Yeah.
that reduces the costs by half. Do you look for such a possibility coming in the near
Yes,
future?
of course, there is a possibility. It depends on how much is the passenger flow. If you have good passenger flow, it's a commercial proposition. The airline is a commercial venture. So they will see if you have good passenger load throughout the year, it makes it a viable proposition.
So it can be like an experimental basis that we start with a flight in a week or something, 2 flights a week. And if the business picks up, they can move into.
Once you start a flight, you can get not only tourist people coming, but business people also coming. You can even have education linkages better. You
also
can have
better.
students traveling back and forth on both sides. So you can encourage good deal of travel between all these countries. Our plan was to link Trinidad and Brazil through South Africa to India. I mean, it's a straight. If you draw a line, it is
over
straight
there,
across the
it
map.
it goes
Instead
into
of
that.
they're going all up
All
and
the up
coming
and down,
down,
up and
they can come down like that. Well, let's see.
And I think one thing which I saw which happened during your tenure over there, that the visa for Indians was removed in Trinidad. It was a visa on arrival done over there.
That's right.
And now India is opening up to many countries now. I think we are recently going to add another list of it. Do you think this is possible for the Caribbean countries also?
It
that
is
their
possible.
citizen
It is very much possible, and we should give it. And because we are expanding the scope of visa on arrival scheme, I think we should also include these diaspora specific countries, more so because to encourage this diaspora traffic into India, I think. And they are not in any way secure, comes within the, the security ambit of Government of India, and they should be allowed to come more freely.
Like for the PIOs, they don't need a visa.
PIO, if they have the PIO card, they don't need.
They don't need a visa over there.
OCIs, of course, are better. Even they don't visa for life.
Okay.
So nowadays, more and more people are learning about this. So there are many people who are taking PIO cards.
In fact, I realized that because of the PIOs and OIC things, there more interest developed into the genealogical studies over there, because some certification and all is needed for that. Right. You have to prove that which ship or something like that, and what ancestry you had in India.
You have to have a basic certificate showing how you are connected, to somebody who was at some point of time
in India.
Yeah.
So with that kind of a thing, this also, you see, it's like a multiplier effect of certain aspects related to there.
That's right.
And one last thing I'll ask you. We find a lot of not very good, I'll say, but some of these traders and doing, popularizing Indian, goods over there. And when I was in Suriname, I was told that the quality was not that good. But they said that it generated a lot of interest among the younger generation there to go back to Indian dresses, to go back to Indian jewelry, that kind of a thing. So do you think there is any scope for further promoting India through these kind of interactions, but in terms of better quality aspects related to that?
I agree with you. It has
and same
to
is to Indian cuisine,
It has to good quality. The fairs which I saw in Trinidad were of very, very inferior quality, and they really didn't project the best of India. In fact, they were diminishing brand India. And I was telling them that this is not the way to go. This is not a correct depiction of what India has to offer. These are cheap things from some wayside pavements. This is not the proper way you should show Indian fabrics, Indian designs. And basically their impression of India will stick from those things which they buy
Very
from
right,
those
very
fairs,
right.
substandard things. They won't know. They will feel that yes, this is all that sells in India.
That's right, because
I
even
protested there,
I
and
know.
government took some note of that.
I know.
But those fairs will go on because everybody has some kind of a interest in that. So
And
it
one
will go on.
last point I'm trying to make, what I'd like to know your opinion on that. I suggested in Trinidad they have the Diwali Nagar, huge area, and you know how property and the way Indian culture is depicted there all throughout the year with certain activities.
yeah.
I suggested to the president there that why don't you have a mini India here, you know, like bring in some weavers from India,
Yeah.
show them the Indian weaving, get some tailors from India, you know, start stitching over here, you know, or some jeweler or something like that. And what I thought will become a hub, you know, for the whole Caribbean Indian community, even there for benefit of Trinidad itself,
That's right.
doing like
and
that.
we do a lot of tourism promotion for
Tourism
Trinidad.
promotion. And I said you can, there should not be political reasons also. You can have a similar hub for the African diaspora and a similar for the Indian diaspora. So, but then I realized I think that it needs some sort of initiative from our government side also to encourage this, because I've been seeing the Chinese government. The Chinese have been encouraging a lot of such things to the Chinese diaspora. And I think Indian government also needs to give a strong push factor to these kind of activities.
My final take on this is that there was a plan. There was a plan like that to develop Diwali Nagar and make it, as you said, hub of a mini India. It still is. It's still in the drawing board. But what happens is India can go this far and not farther.
I know.
Up to a point and not farther, because you have to respect the sensitivities of the local ethnic configuration. And it is always that point in respecting that you can't do more than what you feel you should be doing. For example, their decision like this has to be taken by their government,
That's right.
not by the government of India.
That's right.
Because
That's right.
Trinidad, Diwali Nagar belongs to them, not to India.
That's right. That's
So when they put a India in this thing, they will invite controversies and things like that from other ethnic communities, that why not this ethnic group, why not that ethnic group, why India, and things which
And
they
even
have
maybe
to fend
politics
for
within the
themselves.
Indian community also.
So you don't want to go into that, but whatever possible in the way that you keep communities happy, yet you project a good part of India, that should be the endeavor which we have been trying to do. Yeah, and I have always tried to project to all communities of Trinidad, knowing how sensitive these communal
Well, I remember their
situations
cultural
are.
ambassador, Mr. Dhaga, African origin, used to be present for every Indian
Yes,
function over
I
there.
made it a
which was there.
point to invite all ethnic groups in our programs, and they really enjoy it, because everybody would love to see the kind of India you are showing. Yeah.
So thank you very much, Mr. Mishra. It's been very interesting, and I'm sure that the students will realize that the Indian diaspora also is a major tourism segment, not only from the marketing point of view, but also a time has come that we have to build up more closer ties with the Indian diaspora, whether it is culturally, whether it is through marriages, interactive relations, business, and whatever it is. That both, or even educational research and educational workshops into that. But I think the ties between India and Indian diaspora have to be based now only not that we are giving to them something, but also I think we have to learn a lot from the Indian diaspora in this respect, and it has to be a both-sided affair. And I'm sure the students are going to look more into these areas and benefit into these areas. Thank you, Mr. Mishra, once again.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.